The sun was already dipping low when the dust rose from the narrow dirt road, swirling in restless little spirals as the old pickup truck rattled closer to the small farmhouse. Inside, a young woman sat silently, clutching a single worn suitcase. Her face was turned toward the window, but she wasn't really looking at the endless stretch of fields. Her mind was somewhere else entirely, somewhere far more painful. Her name was Clara, and she had just been sent away in disgrace. In the town she had grown up in, people whispered about her weight, her quiet nature, her inability to fit in anywhere. But now, those whispers had grown louder, crueler, until they took shape as something far worse: punishment. She had been told she would live and work on the farm of a poor man she had never met, to learn humility and responsibility. No one mentioned that what they were truly doing was casting her out, making her someone else's burden. She didn't cry. She was far too used to holding it in. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion to change lives, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us bring more inspiring stories like this one to life. When the truck stopped in front of the weathered wooden farmhouse, Clara slowly stepped out, her dress clinging slightly in the humid air. The man who greeted her wasn't what she expected. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a deep tan that came from years under the sun. His clothes were simple, worn, but clean. His face was unreadable, neither welcoming nor hostile, as he nodded toward her suitcase and gestured toward the porch. There was no sign of pity, which oddly felt like a relief. Standing a few feet behind him was another man, much older, with a white beard and eyes that seemed to see far more than he let on. Clara's stomach tightened with unease. She had no idea how hard life here would be, but she knew she couldn't turn back. The first weeks on the farm were brutal. Clara wasn't accustomed to physical labor. Her body ached in places she didn't know could ache. Every morning, she woke before dawn to tend to chores, feeding animals, carrying heavy pails of water, hauling bales of hay. Her clothes clung to her skin with sweat, and her hands developed painful blisters. The farmer, whose name was Luke, never scolded her, but he also never offered unnecessary comfort. He gave instructions plainly and expected her to try. Clara struggled under the weight of her insecurities. At night, she would sit alone on the small bed in the attic, feeling the sting of the town's rejection all over again. In her mind, the words of those who had judged her replayed over and over, each one cutting deeper. But slowly, something began to shift. As the days turned into weeks, Clara noticed that her body, though still heavy, was growing stronger. Tasks that had once left her breathless became manageable. She could carry water without spilling half of it. She could climb fences without fearing she would fall. The aches in her muscles transformed into a quiet sense of accomplishment. More surprising than her physical changes, however, was the change inside her. Away from the harsh stares of the town, Clara began to hear her own thoughts more clearly. She realized how long she had been defining her worth by the cruel words of others. Here on the farm, she wasn't the obese girl, as they had labeled her. She was simply someone who had work to do, someone capable of learning. One evening, just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in breathtaking shades of orange and gold, Luke asked her to ride with him to the far end of the property. Clara assumed they were going to check on fences or bring supplies. But as the truck rumbled over the dirt path, she noticed something unusual: the road kept going. And going. For miles, it seemed. Fields stretched out in every direction, vast and endless. She realized they had been driving for nearly an hour, and still they hadn't reached the end. Luke stopped the truck at a hilltop, where the view opened to reveal thousands of acres of land bathed in the fading light. Clara's breath caught in her throat. This wasn't just a farm, it was an empire of earth and sky. Luke watched her reaction carefully, but said nothing. Over the next few weeks, little pieces of the truth began to reveal themselves. The poor farmer she had been sent to was anything but poor. Luke owned thousands of acres, passed down through generations, yet he lived simply. He could have hired dozens of workers to manage it, but he chose to work alongside the few he trusted. Wealth, for him, wasn't about showing off. It was about stewardship, responsibility, and living in harmony with the land. Clara began to understand why life here was so different from the town. Here, value wasn't measured by appearances, money, or status. It was measured by character, resilience, and kindness. For the first time in her life, Clara felt seen, not for her weight, not for her mistakes, but for who she truly was. Luke's quiet acceptance and the rhythm of life on the farm began to heal wounds she thought would never close. She learned how to care for animals, how to plant seeds, how to listen to the wind as it whispered through the fields. She found herself smiling more often, laughing without fear of being mocked. Slowly, the shame that had been forced on her began to fall away like the dust from her shoes at the end of a long day. As months passed, Clara's confidence grew. She began taking initiative, finding ways to make the farm run more smoothly. She started cooking meals for the workers, fixing old equipment, and tending to injured animals. Luke noticed. The older man with the white beard noticed. Even the land seemed to notice, responding to her care. Clara had come here believing she was a punishment, a burden. But she was becoming an asset, a trusted presence, someone who belonged. The day came when Luke finally spoke of why he had agreed to take her in. The town had painted her as lazy, spoiled, and unworthy of respect. He had known from the start that most of what they said wasn't true. He wanted her to see for herself that her value was never determined by their cruelty. His farm wasn't a punishment, it was an opportunity. He told her something she would never forget: sometimes, life sends you away from places where you don't belong, so you can find the place where you do. If this story touches your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us continue sharing powerful, life-changing stories. And if you've ever been judged unfairly, let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your story. In time, Clara no longer saw herself as the obese girl the town had labeled her. She was strong, capable, and deeply loved by the people who mattered. The farm had given her a second chance, but more importantly, it had given her the courage to create a new life. She knew she might still face judgment from the outside world, but it no longer had the power to define her. Standing on the same hilltop where she had first seen the thousands of acres, Clara realized something powerful. She hadn't just been sent here to be changed, she had been sent here to change everything, including herself. Special request to all our Kindness Corner viewers: if this story made you feel anything, hope, compassion, or even a spark of strength, please leave a comment below.